So this is the grave of Roland Norris Fawcett of Boham's House, son of Lieutenant Colonel J.M. Fawcett of the 5th Lancers. Because that's the information that you want to put on your
Your own.
Like, I like my dad, but I don't want it to say Laura Durrant, daughter of Graham Durrant of Tallis.
That's right.
Hey, welcome to Beer Christianity. My name is Jonty, and a little bit later you're going to be hearing from Laura as we go graveyard hopping. What is graveyard hopping? It's kind of what it sounds like, but, you may just need to listen to find out entirely. Excuse my voice. Quite appropriately, I've been coughing a lot. Sorry, I should have said that at the dead center of the podcast. This is a Beer Christianity short. I think it'll be short, quite short, not as long as the full one. This is not the usual format. We're out in the field. Are we investigating a deep theological mystery? Are we going on a pilgrimage to some great site of spiritual enlightenment? No. We're going to stroll around some graveyards and talk about what we find. Why? Because we think it's quite cool and quite fun. So if you're into that sort of stuff, or if you're not, you might find it more interesting if you're like, why would somebody visit graveyards regularly? Laura and I do this quite a lot. Usually if she has a day off, then we'll go and look for... not every day off does she spend with me. She has other friends, apparently, which is rude. But we go and do this sort of thing. So here's a couple of recordings. I meant to make this, honestly, around Halloween about 3 years ago, and just didn't bother because, I don't know, man, I can blame it on being depressed maybe, but it's any number. You could... You know what I mean? I think I've said enough. I think I've been clear. I think I've given you all the information you need. Anyway, some of this was recorded last week, and some of this was recorded a few years ago. All around Oxfordshire. If you're familiar with graveyards of Oxfordshire, then let us know which ones you like and which ones you've also been to. You can message us on Twitter, BeerXianity. You can email us, beerchristianity@yahoo.com. We'd also love to hear your recommendations anywhere near there for the best graveyards you've been to and why. Or your graveyard hopping stories if you've got them. Why are we doing this? Is it to bring out some deep truth? Honestly, I tried to ask Laura some so that we could kind of make this feel like it was having a really big point. But sometimes, you don't have to have a point. You can just do stuff because you like it. You can just do stuff because it's interesting. And that's an important part of being a Christian. Is that fair? Is that reaching? I don't know. I just think sometimes not everything has to have a whole bunch of meaning. It can just be kind of cool and fun. So here is an episode that would have worked really well around Halloween, but I can't stand the idea of waiting now that I'm thinking about editing it. So enjoy the graveyards.
We're in Blueberry Cemetery in Blueberry. I was trying to think of the county, Oxfordshire. This is just a wild name for somebody born in 1896 in loving memory of our father, Prince Albert Edward Belcher.
Prince Belcher.
Prince Belcher. I mean, it's an epic name, but also, wow.
That's a bold. Also bold going Prince and then Albert.
Yeah.
That's bold.
But it must be, 1896, that's probably when Prince Albert died?
Oh, no, he died way before then.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So then that's
but
weird.
it would have been, around, still, I think Victoria was still probably very much in it, because she was in it for, the rest of her life.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
Would have been while she was alive.
She was a fan.
She was.
This is a pretty little graveyard, because it's not that old, but there's enough, late 1800s, and there's lots of little trees and stuff here. It's quite pretty.
Thou thy worldly task hast done, home art gone, and taken thy wages.
Nice. And that is Flying Officer J.A. Atwell.
Oh, see, to be fair, I'll have Flying Officer on my grave. That'd be cool.
Do you think there's any laws to what you can say? Here lies Jonty Langley, Archbishop of York. This is pretty. This has got the effect of wooden pillars.
Entered into rest.
This is beautiful. With her husband. The Lord is our shepherd.
We should kill that ladybird though, to be fair.
Why should we kill the ladybird?
It's an invasive species.
Okay, go kill it.
Oh, I feel bad punching a gravestone.
Fair.
You listen to me another day.
You win this round, ladybird.
But you guys kill those ladybirds, for real.
Why? What? Okay, so for the listeners in Britain, which ladybirds are they supposed to kill?
Anything that's not a like your standard 7-spotted ladybird. Like your red with the black spots, fine, keep it going. Definitely, like look after those ones because they're, I think, reducing in numbers. Anything that is orange or yellow or of that kind of colouring, kill it.
Oh wow!
They are an invasive species, and they're killing the red ones. So.
Okay, and we're doing this based on colour in 2021. Just asking. I'm not trying to trap you or anything, but that's the basis.
Ooh,
Oh wow!
that's fun. Doctor and musician.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Ah, there's a great first name, Loveday Richards. Oh wow. This is really sad, these children's graves, and they're quite recent as well.
Oh yeah. Oh, this isn't.
Oh no, wait, that's not a child, this is just a tiny gravestone. They're fine, don't worry about it. That's alright. You had a good innings, etc. This isn't lighthearted, by the way. We are being respectful about this. We're always very respectful in the graveyards, but we just wanted to take you on a bit of a graveyard tour. So we're at the church in Molesford? Molesford?
Was it even?
I don't think it's open.
I'm just seeing if it's with QR codes to light a virtual candle. That's nice.
That's very strange.
No, it doesn't say what church it is.
Okay.
I was hoping it might do.
But this feels like a quite old church.
Yeah.
Like belonging to the manor. But it's just got this beautiful view of the river.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's that beautiful.
I just like the river over there. Not here. This is.
I was going to say. I was like, this is horrible.
we're looking at some chopped up wood and broken roof tiles and burnt charred things.
The view of this river is less good.
Yeah, this is
that river's nice.
stagnant with a pipe going into
It's just
it.
stagnant tributary. Oh, interesting. Died at Bayshore, New York.
Very interesting.
1951. Wonder what that was.
That's a cool detail.
Yeah.
Come unto me, all ye that are heavily burdened, and I will give you rest. A much loved brother and uncle. Nice. A helicopter on that one? That's weird.
That's cool. My favourite thing that I've ever seen on a graveyard, like an engraving, there's one of a chainsaw in a graveyard that I go
Yes,
to,
you
so I
showed me
should
that
see.
one. That's amazing. Okay, this one's cool.
Oh, that's good font, that one.
It's like elephants and a thorn tree. It's very cool. Oh, it's quite recent as well, so we won't read the name. I like it. And there's a giant cross in this churchyard, which is really lovely. Oh gosh, this is a memorial. It's the Vicar's headstone to the glory of God and in memory of Guy Swinnerton, Vicar, 1962 to 1968. It's like a big railway sleeper cross with, looks like lead edging. I always wonder about these gravestones on the edges.
I reckon it'd be price of the plot.
Oh really? You? I guess you. I was like, you do pay. Obviously, you pay.
Yeah, you must do.
And I'm guessing, yeah, there's prime spots and.
Less prime.
And there's cypress trees, and cypress is supposed to be something to do with mourning. It's about tears or something. I feel like I should look that up. Okay, so we're now in Streatley? I want to say we're in Streatley. And we're looking at a grave that has Rachel, the beloved wife of Thomas Smith, but then at the bottom, also of William, son of the above. It's the beautiful sons of the countryside, just some motherfucker.
Joyriding through Streatley.
The placid sounds of, yeah. This is very pretty with all the trees here, though.
Yeah.
Nugent Charles Wade. Nugent as a first name. It's been a while since I've met one.
Oh, this one's really interesting because I think the placement of the text on these kinds of gravestones implies that somebody else is going to be added below it.
Yeah, because it's right at the top,
Right at the top.
but then it's blank underneath.
Blank underneath. So whoever was meant to go underneath it did not. It's not going underneath it.
It's because they became an immortal.
Maybe. So that looks like a ribcage.
It does look like a rib cage. Or is that made of unfired clay or something that is just washed away? Okay, so we're sitting, the joyriding has stopped, and we're sitting on Pat's pew. We may have chased away the person who was sitting here because
Not
we look...
deliberately.
Not deliberately, but
Actively.
I think as we walked towards them, they ran away.
We have a very threatening presence.
We do. We have threatening auras. So we're on Pat's pew, and it's got a little thing saying, "Pat's pew, sit here, or rest." What does it say? Rest a while and count your blessings.
Yes.
So that's what we're doing. Also, Laura, you have baked us something amazing.
Yes, I have made soul cakes, which are, I think, some people think that they are the origin of trick-or-treating. And I think there's quite a few places that still do this around Europe, and I think in like the north, I think in like north of England they still do it somewhere. But basically you make these little cakes, and they're not really cakes, they're more like biscuits. And you give them out to people, and you like pray for a blessing on their house, which I think is cute.
That's so nice.
So, and they sound a bit creepy, but like they're not. So there you go.
That's amazing. What's in a soul cake? Thank you.
It is raisins and some spices, but generally just kind of sugar and flour and egg yolks.
They smell lovely.
I hope they taste nice.
Well,
I've not
thank
actually
you.
tried one.
Blessings on your house, Laura.
On your house.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I don't know what you were just clinking. That's very nice.
Yeah.
That's gorgeous.
They have turmeric in them as well.
Nice, so healthy. And you said they've got crosses on them, which I'm breaking it into quarters now. You're saying they're like Halloween hot cross buns. Okay, so you were talking to people at church today about going graveyard hopping. How did they take it?
I mean, they took it fine. They did think I was a bit weird, but I think it was more... I don't think that was the hopping part of it they thought was weird. I think it was the graveyard part of it. But I'm also friends with some science teachers. So I think when I showed them the bones that we found, they were like quite interested in it. So that's cool. I think people got used to the idea quite quickly. But
Yeah, what did they say the bones were of?
they thought it might be a muntjac deer, which actually does make a lot of sense, rather than a goat. This is referencing the... I don't know, did we talk about this on the podcast?
I think we did
We must have
briefly.
done.
Yeah. But for those who haven't heard,
We found what we thought at the time was a dead goat carcass in a graveyard with C.S. Lewis's grave in it, and it was like skinned, but like it was bones. It was weird.
it was fresh, but
Yeah.
the bones were clean.
Yeah,
There were no guts or entrails
No.
or blood around it.
it was creepy. But may not be a goat, may be a muntjac deer. So, but we don't know. We'll never know. But no, I think they kind of were like, maybe it was the sort of thing of like, well, I wouldn't choose to do that on my Sunday afternoon, but like if you want to do that, then you go for it, which I appreciate.
What do you like about graveyards?
I like that they're quiet, and I like that they always have a bench, so you can sit and read your book. And I like looking at the names on the gravestones. I think the gravestones are really interesting. I think probably the gravestones are my favourite part of a graveyard, because I like just finding the interesting names and the interesting stories behind them.
Yeah, it's like the lives that have gone before.
Yeah.
And it feels like a kindness to remember somebody, because one of the most terrifying things I find is the idea of ceasing to exist. I like the fact that you're remembering somebody who might have faced that thought of like, I'm going to be erased from life, I'm going to cease to exist, and nobody's going to remember me, and that's a terrifying thought. And the idea that you can do this little kindness for somebody even in death, even if you're not actually helping them, I guess.
No.
But I just think it's nice. It's
It's just
kind.
nice, isn't it?
Ah, that was such a nice day. That's the vibe, though. Do you get the vibe? You stroll around, it's quite quiet, you look at gravestones. Sometimes you can play a game where you're like, oh, any of these names coming back as, like, baby names? But that one just reminded me, that little clip just reminded me that we did have that goat experience. It was a creepy vibe, the whole thing generally, and we did a recording back then, which I have found. I'm going to play that for you now, and then we'll go back to some other just general graveyard hopping. I hope you enjoy this. A little bit later, we're going to discover the graves of a friend of Hitler and her sister, who was just kind of awesome. But first, here's the C.S. Lewis graveyard thing. You know.
Hey, Laura.
Hey!
Tell the nice people where we are.
We are in a graveyard, as is kind of standard for us. And we came to have a look for Clive Staples Lewis. Don't know what full name.
Why would you full name him? I don't understand.
I don't know. I panicked. It came out.
Now, why would you panic?
It says on the gravestone.
It does.
It says Clive Staples.
He's not a member of the Staples Lewis Singers. He is, in fact, otherwise known as
C.S. Lewis.
Who is the author of
The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe.
and in a Mere Christianity context, Mere Christianity as well, obviously far less important.
Arguably more famous for Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe.
Definitely. What is the first character in Narnia that the children meet? What is it?
Mr. Tumnus?
And what kind of creature is Mr. Tumnus?
No, it's Mr. Tumnus.
What kind of creature is Mr. Tumnus? Can you describe what he looks like?
Mr. Tumnus is a faun, and he has goatee legs and a human top.
Nice. Now, Laura, when we came in here, it's a very nice graveyard. It's very nicely kept. It's actually very picturesque. They've got these beautiful cypresses and I think they may be yew trees as well.
Yeah.
And, as is standard for an Anglican graveyard in England. And it's all very lovely and it looks out over a field. I don't actually know what the name of the church is, to be honest. Do you remember?
Holy Trinity Church, something like that.
Holy Trinity Church. Holy Trinity Christian Church of Jesus.
Near a quarry.
Near a quarry in Oxford. It's a beautiful, beautiful churchyard. Now, coming back to the faun, just circling back, when we walked in here, we saw, well, how would you describe it, Laura?
I would describe it as some kind of carcass that eyeless and bloodied and with its with its rib cage stout.
Yeah.
And hooves and little horns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have some disagreement as to what it is, because I think my natural inclination is if somebody slaughtered an animal in here, it was probably a goat.
But if it's not been slaughtered, then it's probably a deer, because you don't just get goats wandering around. But either somebody has brought a goat here and deliberately slaughtered it, or a deer has died in the graveyard.
I mean, the deer has been eviscerated. Like, we can see its ribs, its rib cage is there.
It's been ripped away from the rest of its body.
And it's fresh. It's not like it's rotten at any... it also has curved horns rather than straight up horns, which makes me think maybe a calf?
It's too small to be a calf.
Maybe it was pulled from its mother in some kind of ritual.
No. They don't have horns when they're coming out with their mum.
That is also a solid point. Some solid science being brought to us by Laura.
And the fact that it's got curved horns probably means it's not a goat, because goats have... Like, a goat that size would not have...
Yeah, it wouldn't have curved horns.
It's not that big.
So in our previous recordings about this, we've kind of gone on about there's nothing weird about going to graveyards. There's nothing sinister about a graveyard. It's a really peaceful place, really chill, and like nothing dark about it. Like a good place for Christians to come and chill and meditate.
Except for the times when you find a desecrated goat carcass next to a grave. Like, not just lying about, like next to a grave.
Like specifically next to a grave. And the creepiest thing is that we must have seen at this point 30 people.
30 people.
I'm not good with numbers. How many
6
people? No ways we've seen more than 6.
Maybe 10 people.
We've seen more than 6 people in the last 5 minutes.
10 people maximum.
10 people have been strolling around here. Families, couples, just dudes walking. Nobody seems to have noticed or commented on the carcass that is not in the shade. It's very much there.
It would be weirder and more concerning if it was on Clive Staples Lewis's grave.
That would be more.
That would be more concerning.
We're not going to move it there just for the bands.
No, we're not moving the
No, I said we're not. I wasn't. I said we're not.
Tone of voice. We're not moving the goat carcass. It's not happening.
Anyway, so we eventually will put together our graveyard walks when we do. Maybe we'll do a talk about death and that life after death thing that's been on TV or something.
Yeah.
But this will just be a little jewel in the middle of otherwise quite uneventful trips to graves. Yeah.
Hopefully, when you come and see C.S. Lewis's grave, there will not be a goat carcass on or near it.
But if you have ever been to Holy Trinity Church of Jesus, the Christian church
by the quarry,
and you have seen some kind of animal carcass, then this could be a pattern that is not just is.
Please do let us know if this same sequence of events has happened to you, because that means there's something going on.
What's the weirdest thing you've ever seen in a graveyard? That's our question.
I think this is probably the weirdest thing I've seen in a graveyard.
This is legit the weirdest thing I've seen in a graveyard.
And you've been to many graveyards,
I
would assume, knowing everything I know about your personality.
I have been to many graveyards. I think the weirdest thing I ever did in a graveyard was somebody taught me how to waltz.
Shelley.
It wasn't quite Mary Shelley or Heathcliff, actually. Just that's the coolest thing anyone's ever done in a graveyard. But there was this big kind of mass grave from some kind of South African war between white people, and a very pretty girl. We had been drinking, and then we strolled in there, and she taught me how to waltz on the kind of surface of it. So that was pretty romantic.
That's pretty romantic.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, come to the church by the quarry with C.S. Lewis's grave and tell us if you see anything weird.
We are the official tourist board for Church by the Quarry. We will be putting up more signs to point you to the grave and to the goat carcass that will be here every time you come.
And if the Oxford Tourist Board wants to sponsor our show, they're welcome.
They are welcome.
So we're at St. Catherine's Church.
We're in a town. I think we're just...
Yeah.
I think it's like a little hamlet on the side of the road.
And we've been doing some churchyard hopping, and we have found just a really interesting quote on a gravestone. Who is the person? Read the quote.
So this is the gravestone of Alison Davies, and this is something that she wrote herself 8 years before she died, and it reads, "Today I heard that I must go. How strange, how very strange. 3 years ago you went across, and you'll await me there. I do not fear the dark, or will it be the light? The darkness will not hide me from your touch. The light will show me where you stand and wait."
It's really rather beautiful.
I agree. Sugar all over my face.
In case you didn't catch that, Laura just said, "I have sugar all over my face."
No, my fleece.
Fleece? Is that better? Which is a phrase you hear a lot in graveyards, which is where we are. We are in the churchyard at Sutton Courtenay, and we've just visited the grave of Eric Arthur Blair, otherwise known as George Orwell. And we're sitting eating cinnamon buns. How's your cinnamon bun?
It's very delicious.
Can recommend. Also, this graveyard is awesome with lots of very beautiful cypress trees in fruit. And the fruits do not look real, which is nice. And
also probably quite poisonous.
Yeah, don't eat them. Rather eat cinnamon buns. And we are sitting under a salix something or other, which is a weeping willow. And
I was like, is this not a weeping willow?
Hashtag tree nerd. And but the thing we wanted to read you from this one, we're trying to read you interesting things written on gravestones, and there's one of those above ground crypt type things, and this is of Lieutenant John Rising Kennedy Cox, which is an amazing name, who died in April 1941, but the last line of the poem on his epitaph is drawn by the "Our souls aspiring soar to uncreated light," which is just that's some solid writing for a gravestone.
Yeah, that's some good shit right there.
Loving it. Okay, we got another remarkable grave. This is Peter Standing, South Atlantic Medal. It says Peter Standing, a courageous pilot and gentleman, died April 2002. It says, missed by his wife, daughters, family and friends for his kindness, humour and generosity. And then it's got a quote, "Oh, I have slipped the surly bonds of earth, put out my hand and touched the face of God."
I think we recorded that in Clifton Hampden, which is a beautiful place. Also a beautiful place for wild swimming. We should do an episode on wild swimming as well. The listener, you dear listener, are sitting there thinking, so the reason I listen to this is just to get a little insight into what you do for fun. Yes, that is, because it used to be just going to the pub, and now it's all the other stuff as well. I don't know, man. You can find profound stuff. There's some beautiful poems in there, and there's a few beautiful ones coming up now, because the next one is our most recent mission. We made it a mission. We were deciding to look for a specific grave of one of the Mitford sisters, the Mitford siblings, actually, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about them. I think Laura drops some knowledge while we're there, but I don't think it's quite as full as this, so I'll let her tell you that a little bit later. But Mitford siblings, you've got Nancy Mitford, who wrote Love in a Cold Climate, and who was a socialist. She was also a biographer of Louis XIV, it looks like. You have Pamela Pam Mitford, whose siblings called her Woman. John Betjeman was in love with her. She married a millionaire physicist and spent a lot of her time in the remainder of her life after he I think they divorced, yeah. After they divorced, with an Italian horsewoman, so she sounds fun. You got Tom Mitford, who had an affair with someone called James Lee Milne. Can you tell I'm reading from a very popular source of information? And then a lengthy affair with a Jewish dancer, and then supported British fascism, and this is unfortunately something of a common theme in this family. He wouldn't fight in Europe against the fascists, so maybe is that like just like a classic incel thing where like it didn't work out with the woman you were having an affair with while she was married, who was a Jewish dancer, and so you just became a massive anti-Semite. Is that the deal? Anyway, another sister, Diana Mitford, married an aristocrat, and then married Sir Oswald Mosley, head of the British fascists, which is very unfortunate. Not unfortunate, awful, appalling. How gross. Then you had another bit of a fash, Unity Mitford. We'll tell you her full name a little bit later because it's just incredible. Or maybe I told you already. Anyway, her family knew her as Bobo, which if you are called Unity... Well, Unity Valkyrie, that's her name, come on. Because she was pals with Adolf Hitler. Towards the end of her life, when Britain declared war on Germany, she shot herself, did not kill herself, and was very much kind of depleted and not great after that for the rest of her life. And then you have Jessica, who was very cool. She was the communist. She eloped to Spain with the dude she was in love with, and they fought in the Spanish Civil War on the correct side, and then went to the States and married a prominent member of the American Communist Party. She also wrote, I think quite appropriately for this piece, this podcast, this episode, this thing about graves, she wrote The American Way of Death, which is very interesting. She's very scathing of the funeral industry, which I quite liked. And she was also the grandmother of the African-American civil rights leader James Foreman. And then you have finally Deborah Debo Mitford, not Mitford, who married the Duke of Devonshire and turned Chatsworth House into a really successful stately home, and also wrote several books. Anyway, so we went to go visit the church. We're gonna meet you. You're gonna meet us in the church, looking at some amazing carvings of reclining figures, kind of on their sides, and we're kind of trying to work out what the inscriptions say because it's written in the 1500s, and that makes it kind of hard to read. Anyway, this is us. Picture us in the church. It's quite a small church. It's beautifully preserved. Lots of carvings. Every surface has carvings and memorials and all sorts of things. I think I talk about a terrifying bunch of children who are, I think, meant to be cherubs, but they've got these terrifying baby faces. There's a little throne for the... Is it a throne? What do you call it? I'm not an Anglican or a Catholic-like person, so I don't really know. But the bit where the priest sits, there's a face carved in, which is truly grotesque. Does it count as a grotesque if it's on a wooden chair? I don't know. Can you tell I have ADHD? It's really hard to work out. So we look around there for a bit, and then we stroll outside to try and find Nancy's grave. And I think at this point we've already been outside for a bit and seen some really old, really beautiful, cool graves. Lots of graves with skulls on them, which is one of the cool things you can find in English graves, and probably Scottish and Welsh ones as well, if they're old enough, is this whole memento mori. Hey, remember, you're going to die, so live your life accordingly. All very interesting. But here we are. Join with us. Join with us. So these guys have dragons and chevrons. The other guy has a swan, which I think is more terrifying.
I like the gold as well.
Yeah, gold leaf on these. Okay, describe what we're seeing.
So we are seeing some men who are in stone, and they are stacked up one on top of the other with, genuinely the pose of paint me like one of your French girls pose. One knee cocked up with his arm on the knee and kind of resting on his other elbow.
Carve me like one of your French girls.
I love it. Each of them in the exact same position. Well, the others.
Yeah.
On
So on these ones,
the ones,
and then each one's got their hand on a gauntlet.
Yeah. Both hands on gauntlets.
And each one has a helmet.
And that's like granite or marble or something.
It does look like marble.
That's marble, I think.
With gold leaf.
Gold leaf.
This is just inside the church.
And then next to them, they have their older ancestors. This is more kind of sandstone.
It makes me feel like it's conquistador type vibes. These.
But look at the way that they're dressed, though.
Yeah.
Their armour is definitely more like they've got like almost ruffs around their neck. They do.
Yeah.
This one. Bottom,
Yeah. There's a ruff.
There's a ruff. They've got this. So at the bottom we have Alexander, who died in 1504, very much with the Elizabethan ruff.
Yeah. And then you've got William
and Edmund.
All the feta places.
But then going on into the 1600s, it is different. They have different.
Oh my word! I just saw what we've been standing on, which is these priest monk. I mean, these are definitely, they look like nuns. Oh, and there's another one here. Off to pray for the soul of
Anthony First Place. Are you recording this?
I am. And this is
absolutely
white marble. And these three faces are the most cursed children I've ever seen in my life.
We are at Swinbrook Church, I think.
It's genuinely stunning. I'm just looking at this, like, what do you call this? Is this vaulting if it's wooden?
I guess so. We're here to find the grave of Nancy Mitford.
Yeah.
But we haven't found her yet. But instead we found these amazing guys.
Yeah, we were just strolling around outside and it was gorgeous. And this cemetery has some incredible memento mori.
And some of the oldest graves we've ever seen.
Yeah.
1694 was the oldest we've spotted.
1694, yeah.
I mean, this trumped by 1504.
Yeah, that's
So
pretty...
place. But I feel like inside graves don't count.
Yeah, inside graves.
They've got a bonus. They've
got a roof.
Yeah.
It's just such a gorgeously maintained church, and all these carvings are like, some of them are quite bizarre. Look at this guy on one of the things where the priest sits.
Yeah.
Like, creepy as. Why do we like walking around? So Laura and I do this quite a lot. We walk around graves. We've tried to record something like this before, but it just got a bit chaotic. I never managed to edit it.
Very chaotic.
Why do we like walking around graveyards? Because we do this quite a lot.
We do this quite a lot. I don't know. Why do we like it? We like it because it's just fun to kind of like look at the names and just kind of I like looking at the names, just being interested in the gravestones that we find. We talk a lot about their names and whether we like them or not. but also just kind of like remembering them as people, just like seeing the kind of inscriptions that have been laid on there, and it's just sometimes it's just beautiful and sad, and just seeing the ways that some of them have been maintained and some of them haven't. I don't know, it's just like I find it quite wholesome. It's just nice, just wandering around a graveyard.
You're right, wholesome is exactly it.
Yeah.
It's I get so moved by the some of the messages of grief, or like united again or reunited at last. I just find that really beautiful. The other fun game to play, though, is to try and guess which of the old out-of-fashion names are going to come back.
That's also a good
What are our favourites so far that haven't come back yet, but will when we see them in graveyards?
We've enjoyed Maud today.
Maud has been a
good
favourite
one of today. Oh, that's a Mitford.
No, Thomas David Freeman Mitford. We're looking for
Nancy Mitford.
Wow, this is like a real podcast where we discover something.
This is a true life podcast. True death podcast. Yes. We have, to be fair, on that note, we did discover a gravestone of two wives, one of which died age 36, and the other one, his second wife, died age 16.
Buried in the same grave.
1833, buried in the same plot with the same gravestone, but we could not find him. He was not buried next to them. A different man was buried next to them. Yeah.
I mean, is it a coincidence that all of these, it's like, how many? Like at least 30 or 40 Memento Mori gravestones with skulls on them. Which has just been very cool. I've never seen that many before. But then you've also got all these guys, all the guys in repose. The carve me as one of your French girls, all look identical, or at least three of them do. In threes, they look identical. And that guy, he's obviously been feasting on the souls of the living. That's the only logical conclusion.
David Bertram Freeman Mitford, 2nd Baron Redesdale, born 1878, died 1958. Nancy Mitford was born in London 1904, eldest of 7 children of Lord Redesdale, who owned houses in Astle and Swinbrook. That could be her father.
Nice, definitely.
And his wife, Sidney Bowles. So I wonder if that's her. So we must be in the right place.
Yeah.
Only son of Lord and Lady Redesdale is Thomas David Freeman Mitford.
Also, look at the state of these carvings.
Redesdale, yeah.
Like, they're all like, there's wooden carvings beneath these, and they're painted and beautiful.
They're beautiful.
It's just gorgeous.
Hiya.
So some people came into the church and we felt weird about recording, so we have left. But also because our mission is to find Nancy Mitford. Tell them about Nancy Mitford. What's her deal here?
I think it's also just to add in of why we like doing this. Sometimes we do come to find specific people, sometimes we don't. So we came to find... We found Agatha Christie's gravestone. It's absolutely worth a visit.
It's insane.
It is insane. It's enormous. It's about the same height as me, and it's just like the biggest, creepiest thing you've ever seen. It's
also, to give you perspective, because Laura, a lot of you would probably believe is really tiny, but she claims she is average height.
I am of average height. I'm 5'5". And there's somebody.
The creepy vibes are being enhanced by the chainsaw massacre happening out there.
But Nancy Mitford I found in a book that Jonty bought me about Oxfordshire graves and gravestones, and she was a leftist author and socialite back in the kind of early 1900s. She came up with the idea of you and non-you in terms of what is socially acceptable, which is cool.
Tiny little side note there, the you and non-you is for upper class and non-upper class, and basically talks about how people who are aspirationally upper class, i.e. the middle class, will use more kind of highfalutin language in order to make themselves seem more upper class, but actually it has the opposite effect. And you can see this with, those incredibly wealthy people who who dress incredibly shabbily, and it's the really posh girls who own horses but have messy hair. I'm sure Nancy would totally approve of this explanation. And also, sorry for interrupting. Carry on, Laura.
But the reason we want to find her is because of these 2 sentences which read, on Nancy's gravestone is a hedgehog, as she did not like crosses, Unity Valkyrie Mitford, who is her sister, who died at Oban Cottage Hospital in 1948 at the age of 33, is also buried near Nancy, and she acquired a degree of notoriety for her friendship with Adolf Hitler.
So while Unity Valkyrie has
Unity
a much
Valkyrie.
cooler name,
Less cool vibes.
less cool vibes.
But her name
With
is
the whole
Unity
Nazi
Valkyrie,
thing.
which is very cool.
Yeah,
And also, a hedgehog on your gravestone is sick.
yeah, that's super awesome.
We're on a hunt.
Okay, so also the Nancy Wixon. That's not the same thing. So you have, I feel like somebody close to you once said, when you had asked them what were you doing, and you said you were going graveyard hopping, they said, what is that?
Yeah. I think it's derived from, you know when people go to Greece and they do island hopping?
Yeah,
It's that, but graveyards.
yeah, graveyard
You just
hopping.
kind of drive around, say, hey, look, there's a graveyard. Let's go and look in that graveyard.
Yeah, and there's so many cool ones. If you're listening in the States, like we found ones from the 1600s outside that you could still read,
Yeah.
and loads from earlier inside, which are just incredible. They're such peaceful places.
They're great. There's always going to be a bench. There's always going to be a guy dicking about with a chainsaw. This gravestone, 1722.
1722, tiny little thing,
Tiny little guy. Anthony Elms.
skull on the top, lots of scroll work next to it.
Elhn?
Elkins,
Elkins. It's not the clearest.
1722, but we can still read it. That's the impressive thing.
Yeah, just about.
Also, this location, just to describe it, Swinbrook is incredible and beautiful. It's just lots of big old, are they beech trees around the side? And then you've got your traditional cypress here. You've got this beautiful church with little crosses on the top of the St. George flag flying over it. And then views over the roofs of the rest of the houses. Just gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
Really, really nice. And because it's a summer afternoon, there's just a lot of like work happening and banging around. Okay, we found a quite beautiful poem on the grave of somebody who died in 2001, which we think is gorgeous. Do you want to read it?
Mm-hmm. Move him into the sun. Gently its touch awoke him once, at home whispering of fields unsown. Always it woke him, even in France, until this morning and this snow. If anything might rouse him now, the kind of a son will know.
Ah,
Cute.
so nice. Okay, we've done some more research and we found a picture of the grave, and it's next to another one that is quite distinctive. So now we're strolling along to try and find it. What do you think of here? We've got Mary, Dorothy. Dorothy. Like, how do we feel about Dorothy
I
as
like
a name?
Dorothy.
Dorothy's a good name.
Also, there was a really nice inscription on a gravestone around here that we should read. This one. Jean Rhodes Zivkovich.
Zivkovich? Nay
Wait.
Gordon.
Nay Gordon. And her inscription reads, "Leave open wide your window, for in the stars I hide. So bid me welcome, dearest, and I will drift inside." Which is just lovely.
That's gorgeous.
It's just nice.
And then here, right next to it, less poetic but still lovely. Dear parents, Jean and Ian, at peace together beside their grandson. Sadly missed. Okay, here's a hell of a name though, just as a surname. We usually go for the first names. But Laura, what do you think of Warcup? Warcup.
That's a good name.
Robert Henry Warcup. Come on. Wait, Pamela Jackson Mitford. There's a Mitford here.
Nancy's sister, who ended up living with the Italian horsewoman, you remember?
You found her? Okay, you're not with the other Mitford. Very sad. How did we miss this? Would we call that a hedgehog?
It's a creature.
It's a... that could be a hedgehog.
It's a mole.
That could be a mole. That could be a guinea pig. That's a mole. That is not a hedgehog. Incorrect.
Diana Mosley Nee Mitford.
The one who married Oswald Mosley. Yeah. Their son, Max Mosley, something of a big deal in the Formula One and kind of racing circles, and also joined his father's post-war political party called the Union Movement. That seems fine. And then, of course, worked for the Conservative Party in the 80s. which tells you a lot.
Unity, Valkyrie, Mitford. You name your daughter Valkyrie and then you are surprised that she becomes friends with Hitler?
Yeah. Say not the struggle, naught availeth.
Wow, that's depressing. But kind of cool. That's very goth. Say not the struggle, naught availeth. And Nancy Mitfords, authoress, wife of Peter Rod. 1904 to 1973.
Success.
Amazing. Also, do you think the Mosley is close to, like, Oswald Mosley, the noted fascist? No. No. Right?
Alexander James Mosley, probably.
It's just a weird coincidence, right? Probably.
Probably.
Well, hi, Nancy.
Thanks.
Thanks. And I don't think that's
I don't think that's a hedgehog.
That's not a hedgehog. That's nowhere near a hedgehog.
It's a mole.
Yeah, 100%. Success.
Success.
Okay, so on our little trip to Swinbrook, we found Nancy, Diana, Unity, and Pam, but we were there to find Nancy. So here's a few quotes from Love in a Cold Climate. "It only shows," said Aunt Sadie, "that nothing really matters the least bit. So why make these fearful efforts to keep alive?" "Oh, but it's the effort that one enjoys so much," said Davy. That's quite cute. Here's a lovely one. "I should like you to be on the verge of love, but not yet quite in it. That's a very nice state of mind while it lasts. But of course, I had already dived over that verge and was swimming away in a blue sea of illusion towards, I supposed, the islands of the blessed, but really towards domesticity, maternity, and the usual lot of womankind." Here's another one. "Oh, what a pity it happens to be Davy's day for getting drunk. I long to tell him. He will be so much interested." That's very Beer Christianity. But actually, since this is all about graveyards and all that kind of stuff, I thought I'd read a little bit from Sister... Wait, what's her name? Sister Jessica, the communist. She wrote The American Way of Death, as I mentioned earlier, and I'm reading some stuff that she's written about it. And basically, she's just saying that we've been screwed by the funeral industry and kind of duped into thinking that there is a... what she says here, "There is a myth that the American public is only being given what it wants, an opportunity to keep up with the Joneses to the end. In keeping with our high standard of living, there should be an equally high standard of dying," says the past president of the Funeral Directors of San Francisco. "The cost of a funeral varies according to individual taste and the niceties of living the family has been accustomed to. Actually, choice doesn't enter into the picture for the average individual, faced generally for the first time with the necessity of buying a product of which he is totally ignorant at a moment when he is least in a position to quibble. In point of fact, the cost of a funeral almost always varies not according to individual taste, but according to what the traffic will bear. There is an assortment of myths based on half-digested psychiatric theories. The importance of the memory picture is stressed, meaning that the last glimpse of the deceased in an open casket done up with the latest embalming techniques and finished off with a dusting of makeup. A newer one, impressively authentic sounding, is the need for grief therapy." Okay, she's leaning into some rough stuff, but I think her general vibe of we don't want, we don't approve of the funeral industry kind of screwing people. I don't know if this is true all the time, but there does seem to be a lot of pressure of like, well, if you really loved them, then you would get an expensive casket, and that just doesn't seem right, does it? Anyway, we like your vibe there, Jessica. That is good, and it's a nice way to end this episode of Graveyard Hopping with Beer Christianity. I think the thing you need to remember when you look at this stuff is when you're looking at ordinary graves, even those, a lot of the time, are people who could afford grave markers, people who could afford to be remembered, to pay the fee to have more extensive carvings that we tend to quote because, hey, there's a poem, there's something interesting they've said about the stuff. But the majority of people who get memorialized inside the churches and have statues and really interesting stuff around their death or their remains are incredibly privileged. And
it's just a useful thing to remember when we think about history, and even cultural history. A lot of the time is about the people who are the most privileged. They are not the people who Christ preferences when he talks about the least of these, or in the Beatitudes, or, not to say that there aren't good rich people out there, but yeah, just always good to remember when we're admiring these things, like admiring great architecture or stately homes or any of that kind of stuff, not to be drawn in and seduced by the finery, even if there is also the depth, literally, of the grave. We'll be talking a little bit about that in the next episode, or one of our upcoming episodes. We'll be talking about the billionaire submarine disaster, the Titan disaster, a lot of the responses to that, and just how we felt about it, because I found myself profoundly uncomfortable for a number of reasons. So if you're interested in that and you'd like to share your opinion before we record, get on that bus soon and send us your thoughts, beerchristianity@yahoo.com, or you can find us on Twitter or on Instagram, on Facebook, any of those kind of places. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this. I mean, if you've made it to the end, you may be like, wow, what was the point of that? Well, hey, just a little bit of something different from Beer Christianity. Remember, you can find us on all good social media. You can also find our sister podcast, New Old Music, exclusively on Spotify. And you can download this, share it. Do share it. Share it with your friends if you enjoy it, or if you enjoy some of the other ones. And spread the word about Beer Christianity. Alright, thanks for listening, and adieu.